So I think if you like forks Hello everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with books if you like Bridgerton. Apologies if you can hear construction. I think we're good though. I think I caught them on the lunch break, but they've been working all day and I've been waiting for them to stop so I can film this video. Today, we are going to dive into Bridgerton and I am so excited. So if you're watching this on the day it comes out, then the second season of Bridgerton came out yesterday, and I, as filming, haven't watched it yet, but I am beyond excited. You guys know that I'm obsessed with Bridgerton. And I feel like Bridgerton as a whole has really opened the horizon for people who wouldn't normally read historical fiction to read historical fiction and enjoy it and that kind of thing. I personally have loved historical fiction for quite a while, but I didn't dive back into it until after Bridgerton came out. So I thought if you're someone out there who really enjoys Bridgerton, or specifically the second season, which does follow the second book, The Viscount Who Loved Me, which follows Antony, who is the oldest son, then maybe you'll be looking for some books that are reminiscent maybe of that. So actually shout out to my friend Tay, hey Tay, who gave me this idea. So I know this is a video that like lots of people have done, but I wanted to kind of broaden the horizon a little bit. So I have this split into two different categories. We've got historical fiction that remind me of specifically the second book, specifically Antony and Kate's relationship. And then I've also got some contemporary that remind me of it, because maybe you like the banter or the romance between these two characters, but like you're not a historical fiction person. Don't worry, I got you. But without further ado, let's dive into the historical fictions first, and then the contemporary. I don't remember how many I'm going to talk about, but I'll make sure I leave them all linked down below, so if you'd like to check any of them out, feel free to do so, and let's just dive in. The first one is The Duchess Deal by Tessa Dare. If you guys have been on this channel for any amount of time, you guys know that I'm a huge fan of this author, and I am currently making my way through all of her work. And this is the first in her Girl Meets Duke series, which is a series that follows 4 friends and like a little friend group and their respective romances. So this one in particular, I'm trying to remember her name, Emma. This one follows Emma, and she is a seamstress of sorts, and this Duke, basically they get into this kind of situation and this contract where he offers to marry her because all he needs is an heir, and once they get an heir, then she can go live in the country and live the life of a duchess and doesn't have to do anything with him. And it's their deal that they have created to do this. I think that if you like really that kind of relationship, the banter of sorts between Antony and Kate in the Bridgerton world, specifically the Bridgerton book, then I think you would really like these two characters, because our main character, Emma, she is super strong-willed, she stands up for her beliefs, and she doesn't take no for an answer, and that's really reminiscent to me of how Kate reacts. Kate is very much a person who's going to tell you what she thinks, and I feel like the relationship and the banter specifically between these two characters is very reminiscent of the banter between Antony and Kate, and those were some of my personal favorite moments in The Viscount Who Loved Me, so I think if you enjoyed their relationship as a whole, then you'll enjoy this one as well. The next one is actually another Tessa Dare book, and that is Any Duchess Will Do. This is the 4th in her Spindle Cove series. However, I feel like this is a series that you don't really have to read in order. I mean, there are some things that are spoiled, so like in here I think there are some of the couples from the first few books. It tells you who ends up with who, but I mean seriously, if you're going into romance, I feel like you know who's going to end up with who. But this one follows Griffin, who's a duke, and all he wants to do is be left alone. And his mom has other ideas. So she brings him to Spindle Cove, tells him to pick someone, and she's going to make them a duchess. And so he does. He picks the barmaid. And her name, Pauline. So he strikes up a deal with Pauline, basically says, hey, I will give you this money to basically be really bad at being a duchess. And she goes, sounds good. So she gives him a week. The mom has a week to make her a duchess, and it's the two of them. So this to me is reminiscent because of the character development that we see between our two characters. In a lot of historical romances, you could very easily just kind of skim over the relationships and really just kind of not have too much depth to our characters, but I feel like Antony and Kate really have a lot of backstory to them, especially in the book, and these two main characters do as well. So if you want like a romance that not only has really cute moments, really funny situations, good banter between our two characters, but has a little bit more depth and a little bit more character development to our main characters, kind of like Antony's does, then I think that you will enjoy Any Duchess Will Do. The next one is purely for banter reasons, and that is Scandal in Spring by Lisa Kleypas. This is the 4th in her Wallflower series, which is a series that follows 4 girls, all who are wallflowers, in their respective romances. They kind of create this friendship between them. Again, this spoils previous relationships, but that's really about it. This one follows our main character, Daisy, who is an American in England, and she and her sister have been brought over to find husbands. And it follows her and her father, who basically, like, she spent the entire time that she's been there, I think it's been a couple of different seasons for her, but she spent her time in London saying no and not finding a suitor, and her dad is fed up, so he gives her 2 months to find someone, or he's gonna make her marry this guy who is his apprentice. So it follows her, and then it follows this said apprentice named Matthew, who comes over to wherever they are in England, and it's their relationship, because like they've known each other from the past, but it has not always gone well, and their banter and relationship and just some of the situations they get in, because she really doesn't want him to be there, she really doesn't like him, and that's very reminiscent to me of Antony and Kate, because Kate is a huge not fan of Antony and really doesn't like him and doesn't want him in her life and doesn't want him to court her sister and all that stuff, whereas this time it's Daisy doesn't want him to court her, and he's not a huge fan of it either, and so it's the two of them as they are kind of, their feelings emerge when they didn't want to have feelings in the first place, which is reminiscent of Viscount Who Loved Me and like the plot, but also again just some of their conversations are just really fun, and I think if you would like a good kind of London season, you would enjoy this. The next one, I swear I read more than like 2 authors, but the next one is another Dare book, and this is A Week to Be Wicked. This is the second, I think it's the second in the Spindle Cove series. Yeah, this is the second. Wow, I broke there for a second. This follows our main character, Minerva, and she is very bookish, she's very wallflower-esque. She speaks her opinion, so like, I guess she's not really a wallflower, but she's not someone who's looking for love. And she and this guy named Colin, who is, I believe he's a duke or something, but he has to come of age before he can get his money or get married. And she basically forces him to accompany her to Scotland because she wants to go to a, oh no, what is it? Architectural? It's not archaeology. She's interested in rocks. She's going to this symposium and she asks him to accompany her because A, she's not planning on getting married anytime soon, so she doesn't mind the scandal it would create, and he has literally no care for anything. And so they go on this long excursion, and to me, again, it's a lot of the relationship between these characters, because there are 2 characters who really don't want to like each other who end up really liking each other, and again, very reminiscent of Antony and Kate as far as the characters go. So I think if you like forced proximity, one bed trope, road trip of sorts, hate to love, things like that, because this does have a hate to love aspect to it, which Antony and Kate definitely have, then I think you'll like it. And this is, I think, out of all the ones in here, this is the least like the Bridgerton book, but I do think that it has a lot of good aspects that are reminiscent of these characters, and if you liked them, then you would like this story as well. The next one is purely the scenes and the relationship between our main 2 characters, and that is A Rogue of One's Own by Evie Dunmore. This is the second in her, I always forget, A League of Extraordinary Women series, and it follows our main character, Lucy, who is in charge of the Oxford Suffragette chapter, and she has 0 interest in being in a relationship, and it's her and this like rogue of sorts, Tristan, and they strike up a bargain of sorts because he owns part of this newspaper that she's trying to create, and in order to get the rest of it from him to have the majority, he insists that she sleep with him. But the banter between our main 2 characters, like seriously, I tabbed the crap out of this book because I loved the scenes where our 2 characters talked, and it was very reminiscent, banter-wise, of the Viscount Who Loved Me, the banter between Kate and Anthony, especially at the beginning when they really, really don't like each other, and it's just like these battles of wit basically between the two of them, and no one else is there, no one else is paying attention to these conversations except for the two of them, but they're trying to battle it out with words, and that is exactly what Lucy and Tristan are doing through most of this book. So if you like those scenes and those conversations and that kind of thing, then this is definitely a book for you. The next one is another author that I absolutely adore, and that is Seduction of a Highland Lass by Maya Banks. This is the second in her Macabre trilogy, and I mean, it a little bit spoils the first book, but again, just spoils who ends up with who. But this one basically follows, the series follows three brothers in this clan, and this one follows Alaric, who has basically been betrothed to this other girl, and on his way to basically solidify his, like, her hand, something happens to him and he gets hurt, and so he is saved by a Highland beauty named Keely, who lives in this little shack in the middle of nowhere. Basically, she's kind of a healer of sorts, and then she is basically forced to come back to the keep with him for one reason or another. The main thing that I think is reminiscent of Bridgerton is the characters of Keely and Kate. Ironically, I just realized they both started with K. That's kind of funny. But they're both very headstrong, they know what they want and they're going to say what they want situations, whereas in this one it's a lot of Keely's a healer, she understands that she can't be with him because he's betrothed, but she's going to say what she wants and what she feels, and Kate, while she's not sure what she feels half the time, she will say it when she knows about it. So yes, these characters remind me a lot of each other because of how strong-willed they are. They're not going to hide their opinions, they're going to tell you exactly what they think, even if they know that in the end they're not going to get what they want, if that at all makes any sense. So for me, it's these main characters are very reminiscent of each other, so if you like that strong-willed, you know, won't take no crap from people kind of characters, then this is definitely one for you. The next book is The Heir by Joanna Lindsey, and this is a historical romance that follows our two main characters. So we have Sabrina, who is actually, from what I remember, it's been a couple of years since I've read this book, but from what I remember, she is a little bit plus sized in this, and that is kind of this cloud that like is over her head, and so a lot of her friends don't think that she'll be able to get like a husband or anything, especially not like a duke or anything fancy like that. It follows her and this guy named Duncan, who is Scottish. He's new to the area and he just inherited, I believe, a marquess, and because of that, that makes him super interested and everybody wants to marry him, and his father, grandfather, uncle, the guy that's been taking care of him most of his life wants him to get married. And so he goes to this weekend-long party of sorts, like country party, they do that sometimes, in the hopes that he will find a wife. And it's held at the home of this like very well-loved socialite during the time. And Sabrina is right next door. So she comes, the two of them strike up a friendship, and because of that, he and her start to have some sort of feelings towards one another, and I think that their relationship as far as the plot goes is very reminiscent of Antony and Kate's relationship. So if you like the whole like build up and then see what happens, then I think you'll like this, because there's just a lot about these characters that I feel like are very sweet. And I like the friendship they build, because even though Antony and Kate will not admit that they definitely have a friendship, they have a friendship. Whereas in this one, they do admit that they have said friendship. And I just think there's a lot of things in this plot that if you like Bridgerton, specifically Anthony's story, then you'll like this one. And the last one, as far as the historical romance part of this, is Hazard by Jo Beverly. So this is part of, I think, a pretty long series, but I don't think any of them actually have to do with one another. But we follow our main character, Lady Anne, and she is a wallflower. She's this close to being a spinster, basically, and she's kind of accepted that fact about her. I believe she had a yeah, she's been jilted twice. So like she's had some history that's not great. And so it follows her and this guy named Race, who is for sure a rogue. And he's tempting beyond belief, and she hates him from the get-go, and he's not a huge fan of her either. So it's a huge hate to love. But a lot of the situations and a lot of the kind of conversations and just how these two main characters feel about each other, especially at the beginning, the whole hate to love kind of aspect of it is pretty reminiscent of Anthony and Kate. Especially like the beginning half of Bridgerton, just that whole like they're kind of forced into each other's proximity, if you will. That's not really the right way to say it, but you guys know what I mean. And that's exactly what happens to Anthony and Kate. So if you're a huge fan of that kind of aspect, the hate to love aspect of it, then this is definitely one that I highly, highly recommend. I remember loving this so much. And now we're going to get on to, I think there's 5 here, of the contemporaries that if you enjoyed the Bridgerton book, I think you'll like these contemporaries. And the first one is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This follows our main 2 characters, Lucy and Joshua, and they are the executive assistants, I want to say, of co-CEOs of a publishing company. And they have decided to kind of create a new position that's above that, like between CEOs and above the executive assistant role. There's only one, and they're both vying for that spot. And it's a huge hate to love. They really, really despise each other, and then they get in situations and some things emerge. But the banter and the hate and the verbal sparring between our main characters in here is crazy reminiscent to me of Anthony and Kate and their verbal sparring that happens a lot in The Viscount Who Loved Me. So I think if you like that office romance, hate to love kind of situation, then you will for sure enjoy this book. I loved it a lot. I thought it was very good. Same as can be said, actually almost all of these contemporaries are going to be, I'm going to be repeating a lot of the same things because the same goes for Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. So this is the first in her Brown Sisters series. I'm sure many people have read this and heard about it at this point, but it basically follows a girl named Chloe and a guy named Red. And Chloe, at the very beginning of the book, almost gets hit by a car and has like a near-death experience, and her life flashes before her eyes, and she realizes her life is super, super boring because she is chronically ill and stays home a lot, but she's like, that's no excuse. I need to go have a life. So she creates this list of things to get said life, one of them being to move out, which she does. And the building that she moves into, the kind of manager or like the handyman is this guy named Red. And they get off on the wrong foot, like right off from day one. They have a kind of conversation that makes him really, really despise her. And so they have a lot of issues. There's a lot of hate to love here. There's a lot of hate at the beginning, but then he kind of signs on to help her with this list. And again, the banter between these 2 characters is very reminiscent of Anthony and Kate. Lots of verbal sparring, lots of things like that, and then the romance blossoms from that. And I do think that this is a really good book because there's quite a lot of representation within this book alone. Plus you get a lot of the backstories of our main 2 couples. They both have some issues and they both have some past traumas, which if you've read the book Viscount Who Loved Me, Anthony and Kate both have things like that. So there's definitely a lot character-wise that is reminiscent between these 2, and I personally really, really loved this one. The next one is one that just came out not too long ago. I think it came out in February, and that is Mr. Wrong Number, and I believe this is by Lynn Payne, if I am correct. I have a full review of this, so if you'd like to check it out, I will leave it linked below. So in this one, we follow our main character, Olivia, and her life basically falls apart at the beginning of this. She loses her job, she loses her relationship, the apartment building that she lived in burns down because of her, so she moves country and moves in with her brother in the hopes of trying to get her life back together. But his roommate happens to be this guy named Colin, who she really, really despises. So the book starts with her living in this apartment, and one night she gets a text from a wrong number, and that starts this really interesting anonymous relationship of sorts between her and this guy that she calls Mr. Wrong Number. Hint, hint, Mr. Wrong Number happens to be Colin. And so it's the 2 of them as they are trying to, really it follows Olivia. She's trying to grow up, trying to get a job, trying to figure out what the heck she wants in life, and Colin coming to terms with his feelings for Olivia. And the conversations between our main two characters, specifically the text conversations between her and this wrong number when she doesn't know who it is so funny. Like, they literally made me laugh out loud. They were some of my favorite moments in this book. The banter between them is incredible, and it's very reminiscent to me of that kind of verbal sparring I've been talking about from Antony and Kate, although it's a little bit more contemporary, modernized maybe is the word I'm looking for, so it's not as come at you, I think, as maybe some of the situations in Bridgerton are, but it is crazy reminiscent, and I think like the banter between them is really cute. So if you like that kind of hate to love situation and learning about their pasts and coming to terms with your age, this one is maybe not necessarily as close to Bridgerton as some of the other ones on this list, but I do think that if you like the conversations between the characters, you will enjoy this one. Another one that I think if you like that kind of verbal sparring of sorts is Makeup Breakup by Lily Menon. This is actually the author Zendaya Menon as well. She writes under Lily Menon for adult books and Zendaya Menon for her YA books, and this was her first step into adult books. And so we follow our main character Annika, and I'm blanking on the guy's name. Oh no, Hudson. So Annika and Hudson had a thing in the past, but Annika has this app called Makeup, and it's all about getting couples back together. And on the reverse side of that, Hudson has a app called Breakup, where basically it's kind of like a Grubhub, Uber of sorts, where you hire someone to break up with someone for you. So they end up having offices right next to each other, and it's, again, that verbal sparring, that really hate to love, but there's some sort of attraction that's still there between our main characters that is so reminiscent of Antony and Kate. So I think that if you like that modernized, maybe tech sense to it, because both of our main characters are in tech and small business, because our main character Annika is starting a small business and trying to get it off the ground, then you'll like that. But again, like, there's just that relationship where like you really want to hate the person, but you don't, and there's something that's pulling you towards them. I think is reminiscent of both of these books, so I think you'll enjoy this one. And the last one is, because of course I had to get a Christina Lauren book on here, I mean, hello, have you met me, is The Unhoneymooners. And this one is, I think, again, that hate to love situation between our main characters, because it follows our main character Olive and Ethan, and they're siblings, so Olive's twin and Ethan's brother, well, I'm not sure if they're twins actually, yeah, twin, they get married, but at the ceremony everybody ends up getting sick with food poisoning because they ate something at the bar, except for Olive and Ethan. So basically both of their siblings ask them to go on the honeymoon for them, and because they both end up going, they have to pretend to be this married couple and share a like space and share the honeymoon room and all of that stuff. So it's definitely that hate to love where like they really want to do their own thing. They want to go on the beach, because I believe they go to Maui, and they want to just kind of like take the time to relax, the week or however long they're there, to relax and get away, and they keep getting forced into the same situation, which is so reminiscent. I need to do a counter of that word, because at this point I've said it way too many times, but it's so reminiscent of Antony and Kate, because they are trying to not be near each other, but they keep getting forced in the same situations. So I think if you like the kind of tropical, more summer feel to it, this is definitely a very good summer book. But then I think you'll really like that, just because that hate to love is so perfect and so there and so similar. And also this book is just great. But that is it. That is the list that I have for you guys today of the books that I think you will enjoy if you liked Bridgerton, specifically the second book following Antony and Kate. Please let me know down below if you've also read the Bridgerton book, if there are any books out there that you would say are probably pretty reminiscent of those characters. If you like any of the books that I mentioned in this video, let me know your thoughts on those as well. And if you are watching season 2, how are you liking it? Let me know. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm sure by the time this video goes up, I will have watched probably half of it. So please let me know your thoughts on all of that. Ooh, we should do an emoji. Let's do... This cover is red and it reminds me of a rose. So do the rose emoji if you want to comment something, but you're not sure what to comment. But if you like this video, and I very much hope that you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you'd like to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got all my social media down there, as well as other fun bookish links, so don't forget to check all of that out, and I will see you guys in my next video.